Today's workshop includes 3 tutorials using quilling papers. The first is quilling in its traditional sense. Now this is more suited to older children and adults, although younger children can have a go too, but don't be disheartened if you don't get it straight away. It does require quite a lot of practice. Then our second tutorial is using quilling papers to create a flat piece, and then our third is how to weave with quilling papers.
Hello, really lovely to see you and welcome to our tutorial on quilling. So quilling might be something that you've never heard of before. It's quite an unusual craft, and what it is rolled paper. So we start off with this quilling paper here, really thin strips of paper, and then we roll it to create our different shapes. So here are a few examples that I've done, but I'll show you some more during the course of this workshop. And quilling originated in about the 1700s, that's when we think, and it was originally used for decorating cabinets and jewellery boxes, whereas now it's much more common to be used on cards and little trinket boxes. So what we'll need for this workshop is some quilling paper, your quilling tool, a pair of scissors, a glue stick. You might want a pen, I've just got a biro here, and then also a piece of card, okay, to put our quilled pieces onto. You'll also want to make sure that your work surface is nice and clear and that it doesn't matter if you get a little bit of glue on it, so you might want to lay some newspaper down. So we'll start off by creating just a really simple coil. Now I call them simple coils, but actually this is the hardest thing to master. Now don't worry if you find quilling really difficult at first. It is one of those skills that gets easier with time. So I'll just open my quilling papers now. It's just like if you're doing a new sport or learning a new instrument. Really tricky to start off with, but the more you practice, the easier it becomes, and then eventually it becomes second nature. So I've taken my quilling papers out. These are gorgeous colours. And I'll show you now how we take individual strips out of this. So all we do is I'm going to pull at one end and then pull at the other end. They're attached with a layer of glue. And then pull from the other, and that way you still have your pieces just as neat as they were before. It's really nice. Once you finish this workshop today, you can just pop them back in your packet to keep them safe, all ready for next time. Something really nice about coming back to something that's all nicely prepared for you. So what we do is we take our quilling tool, and you might be able to see there's a little slot in it, okay? And what we do is we take our quilling paper in our thumb and our index finger, so the thumb and the index finger here, we pinch it about 1 centimetre from the end. And then what we do is we're going to slide the quilling tool so that the paper goes inside of it. So I'm sliding it along my thumb and my index finger. Once I've done that, I'm then going to start rolling away from me. Now I'm pinching fairly hard and I'm kind of creating a U shape with my hands. I'm all like a V shape underneath, so I can always see on top what I'm doing. I don't want to pinch so hard as I won't be able to turn the quilling tool, but pinch hard enough so that it doesn't all come loose and fall off. So I'm going to do this now, and at first you'll want to do it really slow, and it'll require a lot of concentration. It's one of the crafts where you need a lot of perseverance, and if you don't get it the first time, don't worry. In fact, I'd be incredibly surprised if you did get it the first time. It's a really hard skill. But the more you do it, I promise you, the easier it gets. You'll see. So as I'm doing this now, I'm going nice and slowly. And then once I reach the end, I'm just going to wiggle the quilling tool out. So I'm holding the quilled piece where it is, and I'm wiggling the quilling tool out. And then it's a good idea actually at first if you've taken the top of your glue stick, so you're not having to switch between hands, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the end just here, plenty of glue, and I'm just going to stroke it down gently a few times until it's stayed. And there we go. That's what it looks like. So that's our first piece that you might want to try out, the tight coil. Now, it's a really exciting project, quilling, because you can create loads and loads of different shapes. I'll show you a few now. So here we have the petal, which actually you start off with loads of the shapes and then you can make them into all of these ones. And we have these ones here too. These are all starting from the basics that I've just shown you. So once you've mastered that, you'll be able to have a go at these ones as well. Now you can make up your own shapes. When I've run workshops before, there's been lots of new shapes being discovered, birds and all sorts. So we'll go on now. From the tight coil, we'll do this mosaic coil. This is the one you need. It's the next step on to then creating the shapes. Believe it or not, the shapes is actually the really easy bit to do. It's this coiling that's actually the harder bit. So I'm going to get another one of my strips, and again just pull it from one end, pull it from the other end, 1 centimetre from the end, thumb and index finger, and then roll away from me. Now I'm doing it really quite fast now, but that's just because I've had years of practice, so you'll want to go a lot slower for your one. Okay, so once we've done this, same as before, we're going to wiggle it out, but instead of now sticking it, we want to let it go a little bit. So if you can see, I'm just letting it go loose. There we go. Then I'm going to glue it on here. So glue that on the end here, and then really gently just stroke it down. You don't want to go too hard, otherwise it'll create a different shape. We still want it to be a circle at the moment. We don't want to press down too hard. So I have my circle, and now this is what I find to be the really fun bit, is creating all the different shapes. So to create your teardrop, this one here, all I do is simply pinch at the top. So I'm just pinching it just like that. That's all you need to do, then it will stay that shape. If I wanted to do the eye, I would pinch both ends at the same time. So a lot of these shapes are quite self-explanatory in that you can look at the shape and think, oh, how could I create that with my fingers? One of the ones that's a little bit harder to realise how you create it is the square. So all you do is you do the eye, and then you turn it the other way and you're going to be pinching here and here. There we go. Now at any point in this video you might just want to pause it, stop listening to me for a bit and actually just have a go, because all of these from now on will want to be able to make these tight coils first, then we do the mosaic coil, and then we choose any of the shapes. That's the order that we do it in. Once you've glued it down, you can't expand it anymore. So once I've glued this one down, so I can't expand it. Now, you might notice in this one here, you can do ones with a couple of colours. So I've started with the orange in the centre, and then I've done the brown outside. I've also done a few here, so this one, and I've also done a really, really big one. So I'll show you how you do these now. So we start off making a simple coil, so just like we did before, and then we stick, once we've made our simple coil, so it'll look like this, we'll then stick it down. Okay, so it's a simple coil, tight coil, but we've kept it on our quilling tool. What we're going to do next is we're going to choose another one of our colours. We're going to put a little dab of glue onto here. Your fingers will get sticky, but that's okay. And then we're just going to lay it over the top. Now you're going to start by rolling away from yourself, like we normally do, but really gently this time because it's not yet dried, the glue. So I'm going to start by rolling it away from myself. Also, if any of these quilling pieces don't go to plan, it's okay. It's all practice, okay? You will get the hang of it eventually. So I'm going quite gently. Now I can do it on this quilling tool like now, or I can wiggle it off and actually I can just do it by hand. Ooh. There we go, I can just go round in a circle like this and just do it by hand, especially when it gets these really big ones. It's much easier to just do it by hand. So I would take it off my quilling tool for that one. So, almost at the end. And I'm at the end, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on as before and then stroke it down. So this is a tight coil, but we've got a double layer. But you can do as many layers as you like. Okay. In terms of if you want a double layer or more than one layer, but you want it to be a loose coil where it can expand and make different shapes, that's something slightly different. So what you'll want to start doing is by taking the colours that you want. So I want a red, whoop, and a purple. And we start by actually sticking these two pieces together. The reason for that is we don't want it to be too gluey when we go on to quilling. So basically I'm going to overlap by about a couple of centimetres, stick it down, and then I'm going to leave this for a few minutes till it dries. Now I've got a different one that I did earlier. Okay, this is a different piece. I have left this one to dry and I'm going to start quilling. If you left it and it was really still sticky, what's going to happen is it won't expand. You'll just be left with a tight coil. It'll look lovely, it just might not be what you want. So I'm going to roll up here. Now at any point, when I'm doing these, I can always cut it. I don't need to do the full strand. So, there we go. You need to make sure you put plenty of glue on those two strips of paper. Mine almost fell apart. So maybe once I've got to here, I've got a little bit left, but actually I don't want this last bit. So I'm going to cut that and save that bit of paper for another thing. Then I'm going to wiggle it off. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand it. So I'm going to let it go. We're not going to stick it down yet. So I've expanded it and now I'm going to stick it down. We always stick down before we make our shape. So I'm going to stick it down and then, I don't know which shape I'll create. I might do a triangle. So with the triangle, what you do is you pinch the two sides like an eye and then, whoop, it's sticking to my hands. You pinch the top. And then you might want to go over again the two sides and the top until you're happy with it. There we go. Okay. Lovely. So
once you've learned how to make these shapes, that's when you can experiment with patterns, with animals, with whatever you would like. So I'll just run through how I made this piece now. So I would start just by creating a simple coil. One that expands, and I want to do one that expands because I want to make shapes, and whenever we want to make shapes, we always want to do one that expands. So I'm rolling this up first, pulling off the quilling tool and then letting it expand. Then remember, before we shape it, we're going to use our glue stick and just dab a fair amount of glue on the end and then stroke it firmly down. There we go. Okay, so these are some that I've made earlier, and then I'm going to make this semicircle shape, and how I do this is by pinching both ends, but not either side, more just to one side, so you've got that loop in the middle. So I'm going to do that again. Again, I would just experiment with these. You can make lots of circles and then experiment with different shapes. So here we are. I'm just going to make one tortoise this time. And then I've got my head here. Now, this one actually is a bit too big, so I ended up just using this for another piece and instead made a small one here. This is just with 1/4 of the full quilling piece. Some of them, you can chop them to however big you want. So now I'm popping the legs on, just with some pen, and then using some prick stick, plenty of glue to stick that down. There we go. Same with the head, I'm going to pop a little bit of glue on and then stick the head down as well. Okie dokie. Making these tortoises, so I made loads, but you of course make whatever you would like. And here are a couple of example pieces along with some example shapes in case you'd like some ideas and you might like to pause it here.
Lovely. So that's the basics of quilling. Experiment with it yourself. This skill is, like I said, it is a hard one to pick up, but if you keep practicing and practicing, you can create, pieces like this. It's just made from paper. That's all it is. So once you can make a few of these, actually you can create some quite big projects. What we'll go on to next is something where we create something like this. So we're not actually rolling the paper, we're just using these strips of paper, to go across your picture. And what we do for this is you choose the piece of card that you want, or it can be a back of a cereal packet, anything really. You could cover a cereal packet with tissue paper and glue, and that could be your coloured card instead of your coloured card. That works really, really well. And for me, I just used an old piece of cardboard that I did it on the back of. So you use whatever you would like, whatever you have available to you, and then we're going to start by cutting the strips. So once I've got my piece of paper, I'm going to start cutting. This is a great project for if you've got these little bits that you're not really sure what to use them for. These are great to stick down.
So I've laid my card on top of some scrap piece of paper because I don't mind if it gets gluey, and then I'm just gluing all over so that I've completely covered it in glue, making sure especially those edges are done. Okay, get those little bumps out, making sure I put my lid on my glue stick so it doesn't dry out. And then I'm getting these strips and I'm laying it from one side to another. Now I'm doing these all over diagonally and then making sure I press them down. My hands are going to get sticky, but I'm okay with that. Lovely, and now I feel like there are enough quilling papers. I'm just going to peel it off. And I'm going to cut all around the outside to get that nice neat edge. So I'm going to go around now. A little bit. It looks so satisfying once you finish that all.
Okay, there we go. Now, all I've done with this one here is I've then stuck just a square piece of paper, actually just cut it up from a magazine, and just stuck an initial K over the top is my finished piece, but you can do whatever you'd like in here. What we'll move on to next is something like this, okay? So it's layered so that, if I just take it off here, it goes in and out, it's weaving with this paper. If I show you the back, That's what it looks like from the back. All of these strips have been stuck over. So I'll show you how we do something like this now.
I'm going to start by gluing one side. I'm going to do the left hand and then I'll do the right hand. So I'm just gluing two opposite sides for now. And then I've already cut some strips of quilling paper, so these are actually half length. I'm popping them under the paper, so I'm actually working from the back. So what you can see on top, that's the back now. And then I'm bending each side over and sticking it down onto the glue. Make sure that's pressed down nice and hard. Then I'm going on to my next strip. Again, popping it around, working from the back and sticking it over. So this back that you can see now, you won't be able to see this in your finished product. It's the other side that is the bit that is going to be seen. So I've left a little bit of a gap there, and I'm wanting to do this amount of gap all the way down. You can do different gaps, but if you're wanting it the same, and I'm just making sure I'm leaving about the same amount, making sure they always line up each side with each other. And now I've finished doing them widthways, I'll show you the front. You can see they're nicely spaced. Okay, now I'm going to work from the front and insert the strips. So I'm going to be pressing one down, then going under the next one. Now sometimes they can be quite fiddly, this one. If you want it a bit less fiddly, if you do the strips further apart, that's slightly easier. So I'm going down and up, down and up. When you want your strip to go over the top, if you just press your bottom strip down, it's much easier that way. So I'm going to move this piece to the top. There we go. And then I just do the same with all the other ones, but I'm alternating it so that next time, instead of going over at the start, I'm now going to go under the first one and over the second one. Now I'm going to start by doing it in the middle because it's just slightly easier doing it in the middle. So I'm going to do it all here, under, over, until I get to the end, and then I'm going to slide it down after that. Working on my last one, and then once that's through, I'm going to move that to the bottom and then make sure all of the others are spaced out. Now we'll be making sure they're spaced out when I turn it around as well. I'm just going to get them roughly spaced out. There we go. And then I'm going to turn the piece over to the back, and now I'm going to stick these side ones down. So I'm going to get some Pritt stick and just stick along there. See, I'm going in the direction of the quilling paper just so it doesn't lift it up too much. And then I'm going along and sticking all of my pieces down. So just going to go like this, sticking them along, making sure they're the width apart that I would like them to be. A useful little tip is holding the edge of the paper and then sticking it down, so I'm putting my finger right on the edge. I'm going to turn the piece round and then do the same with the other side. I'm going to make sure that they're all lined up with the other side, so making sure that, say if you pop a ruler across, it would be straight, making sure they're all lined up. Might need a little bit of extra glue on these ones, so I've just kept my Pritt stick handy. There we go. So now if I turn it over to the front, I can just adjust the bits just a little bit to make sure they're all straight. And there we go, my finished piece.
Okay, and then all I did with my example piece that I did before, I simply stuck this piece onto some card. You can use whatever you like, just to give it that little bit of a frame. Okay. So I really hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. There's so much to experiment with here. You might have your own ideas as well. So experiment, enjoy, don't worry if you don't get it straight away. Like I said, it's a tricky skill to pick up, but one that you can do. If you want, you could ask anyone in your family, they might like to join in as well. It's a lovely activity to help each other on. So I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you next time.